How many of you use trail cameras out there? I suspect a lot. We love our reveals. Been using those for a couple of years now. Jen used them for years before I did. And bottom line is I've been a trail camera fan since 1998 or 99, right around there. And what I've learned throughout the years is they can lie. And that's a bad thing. But I really wanted to talk about why they lie. And especially now as you're reflecting back on your deer season. How do your trail cameras do for you? Let's look at number one, poor layout and strategy. With your trail cameras, you can have them on food sources, in bedding areas, transitions areas in between. What I find is when you have your trail cameras on mostly food sources, does that mature buck, they're very much creatures of habit. They'll go into the same corner of a food source, same corner of a food plot, same corner of an ag field, and your camera could be off just a little bit, and you're not going to see that buck, especially in the early season. Those bucks are going from bedding to food, straight line. It's not until they change their habits into the rut where they actually cruise parallel to field edges, and you can get away with having cameras in kind of bad spots and still get a picture of that random buck. What's your battery strategy? We set ours to maximize our battery strategy. So if they're into the woods and we're not going to be able to get to them without spooking deer, then we're going to manage that on picture only. Where we can get to them and change when we're hunting, then it might be 10-second video, but even then we're still putting on a 3 to 5 minute delay. We really like to put them on mock scrapes because that focuses more on mature bucks. A mature buck might go out of his way to hit a mock scrape, or a doe won't. So that really helps us narrow down and not get as many pictures. I don't want 50 pictures a day of one camera. It's going to burn battery life out. So it's all about trail cam management, battery management. That's part of it. We don't want to go in and change all our batteries randomly throughout the entire season. We want our batteries to last the entire season, or most of it, knowing that, hey, we're not going to hunt that stand until mid-November. It's mid-September. Oh, we go in there in November, we'll take a set of batteries and we'll change them out. And then that way we can keep that camera going. So in that way, if you're not managing batteries well, if you're putting them in poor locations, mostly food, then you're not going to get an accurate representation of the bucks on your property, the deer on your property, and it's going to be very, very misleading. Number two, you have too many of them. Now, if you have 60 cameras and 40 acres, and your setup is good, we'll talk about bad setup, and you don't have to go in there and ever change a card, ever change the battery, you don't have to touch them, well, I mean, it might not be hard. It might be hard to have too many just because you're managing everything well. You don't have to worry about spooking deer, and you're setting them up properly, but most people don't. Dylan told me a story about someone he knows that had, 30 trail cameras on a property? And you're not seeing a lot of deer. Well, if you have to go in and manage those, manage batteries, manage cards, whatever it might be, then you're leaving all your scent and noise and commotion. And I've been to clients that are paying us a lot of money to come, and they'll say, well, it's okay to drive the side-by-side around in the middle of the day and change those, right? The side-by-side doesn't spook deer. Wrong. Really, really, really bad. In rare exceptions, the side-by-side won't spook deer, but those are more like big 1,000-acre parcels in Kansas or Iowa or something, and even then they're not driving those side-by-sides through a bedding area or through a food source in the morning or afternoon when those deer are coming back to that food. Are your cameras at stand locations? And if they aren't, why not? That's a place where you just picked where a mature buck might walk through, or a nice buck or a nice hunt might be provided in that location because trails are coming together, habitats coming together. You can get in and out without spooking deer. Why wouldn't you have a trail camera there? Almost all of our trail cameras are on a stand location or blind location because we put that stand or blind in that spot because we expect to see a buck and shoot a buck in that location. So why wouldn't we have a trail camera there? Some say, well, the trail camera will spook deer. Not if you're setting it up properly, which is what we'll talk about next. So in that way, if you don't have your cameras at stand locations, that means they're not in the best spots on your property. If you're saying that it's the best spot for a camera because you can get a lot of photos of deer, why don't you have a stand there? You can see where I'm going with this. The camera doesn't spook deer unless you have a bad setup. You spook deer. So putting a camera in front of your stand locations, we've been doing that for decades. And that's a tried and true tactic because we know how to hide our cameras. And that leads us into number 4, bad setup, height. Is it hidden? Most of our cameras are about right here, here. And I really like the new Tactacam reveal mounts because we can pivot them on the tree, turn them side to side, and we can use those. You might even seen those in some of our hunting setups because we'll put one above our head so we can get deer coming in and film, self-film with a cell camera. We can watch each other's hunts. Jen and I can, so it's kind of cool. But anyways, I can put them up high, put them down, and shine them in the area, and deer rarely look up at a camera. We're using blackout cameras, low glow, so they're not looking at the red bulbs like they used to. Put them up high. We put them on trees. They're typically wider than the camera. You might have a camera right here, but then it's got a lot of brush around it, other trunks, and it's hidden. We have some that are waist high, but it's hidden within a bunch of trunks. They don't make any noise. Deer can't see them, so perfectly hidden. We have some that are a foot off the ground. Just like deer don't walk around looking 6 feet up for a camera, typically. They're not looking a foot off the ground either. So if you put that off to the side, we have some in a water hole we've had in the past, been a foot high, looking up at the deer that are drinking in the water hole. So bottom line is, you have to hide that camera. Something wider than the camera, maybe the profile hidden from either side, typically 6 feet off the ground or more, angled down. And then a lot of times we're putting them on a mock scrape. Most of our cameras, the majority of our cameras are on mock scrapes. Because then when a buck comes in, it's focusing on the mock scrape and not you in the stand or the camera nearby. And that's a great advantage for those mock scrapes. If you're not putting that camera at your stand locations and you have bad setups where those bucks can pick those cameras out and watch them, and you can't tell me they don't. We've had times they see that little box like this and they're backing up because they see that camera. It's a bad sign. We used to talk about that out of every 100 pictures, you should have a deer look at your camera 3 times or less, and I'm thinking more like 1 time or less. If they're looking at your picture, at your camera, once out of 10 shots, that tells you need to change something. You need to hide it a lot better. But if you're hiding it, you have good setups, and they're near your stand locations, how's that trail camera going to lie? In fact, if you're doing it right and put them in the right locations, namely stand locations, and you're hiding them, and you're managing batteries well, you're not going in there to make extra trips. When do you change your batteries? Well, when you hunt the stand nearby. And if you have them at your stands, it's pretty easy to do so. So when you're doing all that correctly, when you're managing batteries, when you're setting them up, you're hiding them, you don't have too many where you're going in there and changing them all the time, you have a good layout, they're not just all on food sources, then guess what? Not only do trail cameras not lie, they're unfortunately brutally honest. And what I mean by that is they're not setting up false expectations. If you do everything right, then you know that unfortunately there's not a chance of there's very low chance, there's always a chance of a mature buck coming through that you didn't already know about. I read something by a deer management organization one time. They said that, 50% of your bucks or 70% of your bucks should be random. You don't know what they are. 50%, 40%, 30%, whatever that number. Now, if you have a good trail cam management system and you're doing it correctly and you manage your property well, meaning you have bedding to food, connections in between of mock scrapes, water holes, you develop strong lines of movement, like, good layout and strategy in your hunt and habitat, whether it's on public land or private, then you're going to know your bucks every year to the tune of at least 90%. And if you don't, you probably could look at your poor camera, habitat, and hunting management all combined. Because you should at least know 90% of your bucks every single year and get history of those bucks. And that's a sign, one of the signs of a good parcel management and hunt management. It's one of the greatest signs. Do trail cameras lie? Yes, especially when you're doing it all wrong. They're brutally honest when you do it right, and when you do it right, they're a tool of intel that can not only help you manage the herd, manage your land, be critical of yourself, notice your hunting mistakes, hunting blunders. When do you spook deer, when do you not? The cameras will tell you, but they'll also tell you how good you're doing overall with your hunt, help you set up expectations, not false expectations, set goals for yourself, and really set expectations for you and the other hunters on your land going forward for decades to come. It's that time of year. What do I mean? Christmas time. I just want to remind you of all the stuff that we have that you can buy to help your loved ones, yourself, achieve their whitetail dreams. We have all the books I've written, our web classes, our seed products. And if you're a really big spender, hire one of us to come out and design your parcel. We've actually had a few Christmas and birthday presents like that. Bottom line is there's a lot of tools to help you out. And if you don't want to spend anything at Christmas, we do a lot of free content for you. But check our Christmas stuff out, whitetailhabitatsolutions.com, Pure Wildlife Blend Seed Company. Thanks for watching, guys, but most importantly, Merry Christmas.